Welcome to Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers.
And welcome back for this week's Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers podcast. This week, I have the pleasure of being joined by Paul Warren, founder and CEO at, and I love the title of your business, Paul. I absolutely love it. Making websites better. We overcomplicate so much in the marketing industry. It's refreshing to come across someone who name their business what it is on the tin. It's like Ron Seal. It's brilliant. Making websites better is, for want of a better description, a website performance agency. It's a combination of website design and digital marketing. But your career goes back, 30 years, Paul, as a graphic designer?
Yeah, it's great. And thanks for having us on. I worked out the other day that I started my career in graphic design 30 years ago. I put a post on LinkedIn about it. I think it was my most engaged post this year so far. And hopefully, because people are thinking maybe I don't look old enough, but I know I am. And it was my dad ran a printing company, and I used to go in with him at the weekends when I was a teenager to muck around on the Apple Macs back then and got a passion for graphic design. So yeah, going back.
It's a fantastic skill to have. I wish I had more graphic design capabilities because it's definitely one of my weaknesses. But aside from that, you've also got your fractional CMO services. So you're launching PW&A, Paul Warren and Associates, which we've been talking about recently. But your goal is to help people reach their full potential, right? That's where you want to be, whether it's business, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, that's where you sit. Thank you very much for coming along to the show. I know this is your first podcast. I would like to see some of my Market Pulse audience giving some nice positive comments on Paul's performance here today. But yeah, if he says anything he shouldn't, I'll just edit it out. I'll see you'll get better, but I don't get any better. So why should you?
Taking my podcast cherry, so really grateful, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Tell me then, Paul, how did you get from being a graphic designer to running your own web performance agency? What's that journey look like?
Yeah, it's a long journey. I think there's some really interesting stuff to start with. Obviously, had a career in graphic design. I was a really good designer from my teenage years through to my 20s. And one of my clients, my private clients, was spending an awful lot of money on printing. And I know a bit about print because I was designing for print back then because that seemed to be the one medium in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the client was spending so much money on print that we decided to start a printing company together. I formed a print company, bought equipment, employed staff, got premises, did the things that you do, but learned very quickly, as all entrepreneurs do, that being good at one skill set does not mean you're good at the other 99 it takes to at least survive, let alone thrive. So that was a real eye-opener. I got some crazy things that I want to tell you that happened. In our first week of trading, our building flooded. So I had £250,000 worth of printing equipment underwater that I just bought and hadn't even turned on yet. In our second week, there was a global economic crash in 2008, and my investor and my other two clients said we need to pause all work. And by my second month trading, my investor and my only client went into liquidation. So I lost all my work and my financial backing. So resilience, I learned from an extraordinarily young age in entrepreneurship. Amazing I survived that experience. And what it taught me was to go out and sell. Being a graphic designer and sitting in a comfortable office and being good at your skill set was great, but I had to go and get new customers. And it wasn't necessarily first nature to me to do, but we had paper, we had print machines, and we had feet, and we knew where businesses were. So we printed flyers, we went around and walked the boards of a Hertfordshire and got to know businesses. Within a couple of years, we turned the business to a really good profit, and we ended up winning a National Print Award for innovation, won a contribution to the industry award in the print sector within my 20s. Purely, I think, is a story of how we went from probably should have gone bust, but had personal guarantees on the start to thriving and becoming a really successful print company.
It's amazing what happens when you don't have a plan B. Like when plan A is everything and you're willing to give everything for that, you can move mountains.
Most definitely. Yeah. You don't know you don't know things about yourself unless you're put in a resilient state. And I think a lot of people today talk about things like mental health, but I should talk to our team about things like mental resilience, because I'd rather someone that's run a business 20 years to run a country than someone with good education, because the resilience skills you learn from running a company or being in a senior position in any occupation is amazing. It's a good foundation. But yeah, that business unfortunately didn't thrive after about 4 years. My investor came back into the play, and unfortunately that business did actually fail as a company. We moved on to doing other things. So I went into working with a lot of other sort of printing companies, coaching them and consulting with print companies on what they do and trying to help them replicate what we were doing in terms of sales and marketing. And we were very innovative in terms of technology. So instead of buying a piece of software to make us the next Moonpig, we went and built one in technology. So I had my first taste of development and that side of things. And after the consultancy side of things, I just looked at it and thought, every web agency I've ever used, every SEO agency I've ever used doesn't work the way I think they should. And that's where MWB was born a few years ago, was to try and do things the right way, in my opinion.
I resonate very much with that. And it's one of the main reasons why I ended up in my own business as well. It's why I first took the leap out of corporate, because I was sick of being told what to do prescriptively, and then ended up in a startup where I had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted to do, but it was still somebody else's business. And I just wanted to do my own thing in my own way, in a way that I thought would make the most sense. And I don't know whether that's a neurodiversity thing for me. Certainly, I think it is for me, but it's not necessarily for everyone. But I do think that belief in yourself comes from something you experience. Like, it's amazing how many guests I get on the show that went through that 2008 crisis, that went through the COVID crisis. And consistently, everybody comes back to those as key points in their career of, my business should have failed. My business was crumbling, but we did X, Y, and Z. And this is the skill set I learned as a result. And this is why I'm now successful. And I think there's something in that. If you can thrive in those environments, or at least survive in those environments, then you set yourself up to do really well when things are more stable and sensible. I'm not going to say golden.
No, definitely. We're in an uncertain time now. I think it feels like we've been in uncertain time for at least 5 years, haven't we? But I think a lot of clients ask is, should I stop? The common question is, should I stop marketing in a downturn or in a bad economic environment? Depends on you. There isn't a right answer, such as, if you don't, people say this, don't they? If you stop marketing in a bad economic climate, you're going to be in trouble. But it's not necessarily the case. It's case by case, and it's business by business, I personally believe. But resilience, you can't get from anything else other than experience. Sadly, is learning from what doesn't work in marketing, what does work in marketing, what works in life, and what doesn't work in life.
What I find really interesting about making websites better is, obviously, you set out with the intention of being a web design, web development agency, and then found that digital marketing was something that you also needed to help your clients with in order to do the website side of things better. And I think that's interesting because there's elements of that mirrored in my own business. So walk us through that journey from, like, when did you first realize that you needed to offer something other than just website design and development?
I think we were on about our 6th or 7th SEO partner within about 18 months of starting to trade, that I realized that we weren't going to find an SEO agency or digital agency that aligned with our values. It feels like the whole industry, this is not a wide statement. There are some great people, obviously, in every industry, but it felt the people that we'd chosen to work with were more interested in the sale and more interested in the contract, and weren't willing to qualify the work and put the hard graft in finding out what's going to work. Things like SEO, in my opinion, is a bit of a dark art. There is less tangibility to it than other channels. And people are sort of saying things like that because it might put clients off investing in that channel. Our values were extremely honest, and our brand values as a business are smart thinking, passion, empathy, and telling the truth. And for me, telling the truth as a brand value is not just honesty, because honesty is, we got caught out, that didn't work.
Yeah.
For me, telling the truth, and our team speaking to clients, telling the truth is, we don't think, all the data we're looking at, we don't think we're going to be able to give you a return for this client. So we're going to be upfront about it. Yeah. And if we want to work together, that's the best way to start a relationship. Yeah. We came from values, basically.
I like that. And you also mentioned there empathy. And I know from your LinkedIn profile, etc., you describe yourself as an empathetic marketer. You must be the only marketer I know that has that word empathy in there. I've talked to a lot of people who are business counselors, come marketers and similar, but where did the word empathetic come into this for you?
For me, it's that I started to learn from the first part of my career being a graphic designer and always trying to think about the target audience, even though if a client briefing me wasn't so concerned, they wanted to say what they wanted to say. Through to then getting more into consultancy and working with print companies to coach them on being more successful commercially, understanding their point of view. And then now being more in broader marketing, web and digital. Those sort of 3 experiences led me to believe that, like, in my personal opinion, we can do our best work as marketeers when we really genuinely care about the person we're marketing to, not for. It's great that our client is telling us what their business does. We're never going to know their industry like they are ever, but it's fantastic to really genuinely think about the emotion, the rational and emotive parts of audience's tastes and wants and needs and challenges, and how do you solve their problem? So for me, empathy is driven around the user experience, customer experience focus to everything that we do in marketing.
And leading then into kind of where the market's at right now, it's like, what do you see as being the next big trend in digital marketing that's ahead of us? What's coming down the line that particularly makes you curious? Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialize in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
One thing right now is got me really curious. I am not an AI expert whatsoever, and it's one of them, like everybody, has a little dabble and looks at things. But one I'm really fascinated with is, can marketing be flipped on its head? So we're moving into a world where things like cookie policies and advertising to us is being a little bit diminished. And we know this from running social ads and things like that, is becoming more challenging to genuinely target people that might be interested in the product or service. But we're going to have phones, and the next round of iPhones that have just come out have got your own personal AI. And I imagine every device we're going to have is going to have our own personal AI. I wonder whether we are going to move to an era of marketing where we'll be able to almost train through our behavior and give permission to our devices that I might go to holiday to Thailand next year, or I might buy a car in spring next year, or I might do these things in my life. And the middleware, whether that's OpenAI or other, selling that algorithm to marketeers and advertisers that want to put the products and services in front of people. So almost moving away from I once clicked on this product, now I'm going to see it forever market, to expressing interest in a different way. I think that AI may be training ourselves to find products advertised to us.
I suppose the knock-on effect of that as well is that perhaps we'll find that more people have the basics of marketing in their pocket as AI gets better. And believe me, it's absolutely not there yet. But as it gets better, and we're talking about, OpenAI was talking about releasing a model that's 1,000 times better by the end of this year, or 100 times better, I think maybe it was. But the model that they were planning for next year, because it's exponential in its development, the model for next year was in the millions of times better than what we currently have. That scares the shit out of me, I'm not going to lie, because what we've got right now is pretty good. But if I consider what outputs we get now, when I ask it a marketing related question, it's actually really sensible and decent and can guide you through processes. So I think personally that the other advantage of all of this is that it's going to democratize marketing to most people, which means I'd like to think, and I know it won't work this way, I'd like to think that marketing would get better because it would force more genuine marketers to rely on their genuine experience, knowledge, and skills that make them a human. And it'll get rid of some of the crappier marketers that are out there that are just, to your point, they're just out there to make a buck. Put an invoice in, we'll lose you in 3 months, but we don't care because we've got 10 other people doing the same thing. Is that something you can see come in, or?
I think quality is going to come into play. One of my things I think we'll probably come to is like some don'ts and that. And I feel like the AI space is where there's a lot of people rushing into producing content using AI, great, but don't rush too fast. I still think that people want to buy from people, and to your business, Javelin, like where you're producing phenomenal content for people professionally, and it makes sense because there's connection and trust and authenticity. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Where does making websites better fit? Who are your clients? Like if you were to pick somebody who was an ideal persona?
We went through this over the last few months, looking at our brand and looking at how our ideal clients are. And I think everyone wants to find like a sector or a super niche. And in our industry, the agency world, all the agency bodies say, oh, you've got to niche. So everyone does that process of thinking, who should I focus on? I think we've settled on, we can't really find a sector. We've found state or stage. So working with startups is a personal passion. That's why I'm launching PWNA, which we might talk about. But the making us better are really good at opening up channels when we get to work with someone. Quite often people come to us and say, I didn't do website. Obviously, you can imagine giving our name. But we're very good then at looking at, you're doing very well at getting people to your website through pay-per-click, for example, but you could be doing better organically on search engines and et cetera. So I think what we've found is our sweet spot being full service digital is trying to find the right, most effective channel for our client for their goals. So a scale up is what we call it. So a fast growing business that has clearly outgrown their brand or website, but just needs to now look at what's the most effective channel. and complementing their in-house marketing team, because obviously a lot of these businesses we work with tend to
Already
have
have
marketing professionals in-house.
have some folks who are a little bit cagey, right? A little bit edgy. Is that a challenge that you come up against a lot? Is it kind of, do you get a lot of pushback from the internal marketeers, or are they pleased with
Yeah,
the
a
help?
little bit, but I think that comes down to I think it's the empathy word again. Like if we can understand what they're trying to do in their roles, we want to make marketing managers we work with look like rock stars to their boss, right? So it's a case of just trying to listen to what they obviously feel they're capable of doing in-house and trying to find a solution that's best for them. Yeah, it's agile.
So then going back to, we discussed kind of crisis points in economic times and things like that. As you said, like things aren't exactly the most stable at the moment. There's a lot of significant changes impacting on the market almost daily at the moment. Like you never know where the next thing's going to come from. So for those people that are considering, what do we do with our market next in this changeable environment? What's your advice for them to help them make that decision as to what that needs to be?
Yeah, it depends on the channel. We have a process to understand why you're marketing in the first place. So we call it track. So it's understanding the target audience, how you reach that audience, activate their interest, convert their interest, and keep their interest, more importantly, right? So website is only a small part of that. It's part of we're going to get them to a website, but there's a lot more to it. So I think that it's really important to consider those things. The other thing I think with marketing is today is people are a bit afraid to experiment, and marketing is experimentation, really. It's building a brand, product or service and putting it out there and hoping the market react to it. And you don't know that they will or not. So a big thing I believe is failing fast. So putting something out to the market, a short campaign with a short budget and with enough data that you can test and learn from that, rather than saying, I'm going to invest in SEO for 18 months and not know whether that's going to yield a result because you might not get the right audience.
I think you hit the right thing on the head there in terms of enough data. And I think that's where an external market and consultant or support team can really add that value is, with the best will in the world, you can go out all sorts of different, I find lots of businesses just jump around. Oh, we're going to try this week. We're going to try that next week. And even the best ones that have a plan sat behind that don't know enough about what the outcomes they're looking for that show the likelihood to succeed in the longer run. Because I think the problem with a lot of marketing is the results don't happen within that time frame of that experiment, only indicators of the results. And so they've then got to choose, have we got enough information here to gamble on this, or actually do we just drop it and go with something else? And a lot of the time, I think those indicators are hidden. Is that fair?
I totally agree. And I think brand seems to be being pushed down a bit in the priority list for SMEs, where obviously every small business and every young marketeer tends to believe that everything's tangible, and it's instant gratification world we're in now. So I want something delivered, I can get delivered right this second. I don't have to wait a week anymore. There's things like that where we can get access to information quickly everywhere in our lives now. And marketing's become, I think, the same, where brand is a bit ignored in that growing your brand isn't just having a billboard. It's not just having a TV ad. There's far more to it. And it's extremely hard to measure. So younger marketing and small business owners tend to lead towards, if I spend £1 on ads and they get 120 back, I can keep doing that. And I'll invest in the channels that are a bit more tangible in data. Yeah. But brand, we all know, is what will grow and scale a business without you doing too much work if you get it right.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that I was talking with a guest on the show last week, Chris Reeve, who was talking about something similar in that, now is the time. If you're active on LinkedIn, like never before have you been able to grow organically in the way that you can on LinkedIn right now. Certainly magnified by the focus on video that LinkedIn have and the ability for that to create what I call trust at scale. That the fact that you're really only having a one-to-one conversation like we are right now, but this is going to be seen by hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people who will all gain that trust from watching it as if it was a one-to-one. So I just think there are so many people out there, and I think this extends beyond the time you started your own business. I'm a big advocate for your personal brand is the one thing that will survive everything. If you're in corporate right now and you can build a personal brand, when you move to start your own business, it comes with you. If that business fails, it comes with you. When you start your new business, it comes with you. And when you retire, it comes with you. And it's the one thing that you can focus on building it's just like a savings account that you never need to take out of, but it will give you interest. I think that's key for a lot of people that probably you're working with as well, right? That personal brand element.
We didn't necessarily want to offer social media as a service. Social ads comes into our wheelhouse, I think, in terms of skills that we didn't really necessarily want to offer it. But when we started to work with business leaders and realize that they're better at representing their business in some situations like digital marketing, when you think of personal branding than the business. We've got one particular client that's one of Lord Sugar's businesses, and we work with his son really closely on their social media content. And the business content is reaching the business audience, but him as the thought leader, the CEO, the expert in the business, his content hits and it's got a much higher engagement. We haven't got goals on this particular client, a client like e-commerce, like measuring click-throughs and whatever, but the data we're looking at is that the personal brand content works better and is really effective for that client and many others we work with from the leader of the business to gain that trust and authenticity.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so hard to do without that external support, is just keeping that faith in the process that it will lead to the things that you want to achieve. And if I think of the amount of times I almost come unstuck in the first 6 to 12 months of building my LinkedIn presence, and the fact that I was in a business and being held accountable for growing sales within the business meant I needed to stick with it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have if it was just something on a personal mission. So I think having that accountability is crucial for personal brand. Circling back to a couple of the questions that I generally ask all of our guests, Paul. The first one being, what's one piece of marketing advice that you would give to business owners now around strategy, tactics, etc., that they're probably not considering? What's underrated in your opinion?
Underrated focus. I think we're guilty of it because we're full service. Our name starts off indicating one service, so it's something we look at ourselves. But so many businesses I work with don't focus on what they're really good at. And I always give this analogy that if you imagine that a business is a Swiss Army knife and you, on your homepage, you've got all your blades out, right? You're trying to cram everything into the person's psyche. Like, we do all these 45 services. Great. Are you an expert in any? What's your sharp blade? And I feel if you can try over the years, first few months and years of the business, to identify what your sharp blade is, lead with that, but don't ignore obviously everything else that you do. And obviously that mainly applies to multifaceted services business. But we see that a lot in the professional service sector where, a law firm or something, or an accountant will focus on one thing, but won't focus on one thing. They'll focus on too much, perhaps. Another one is, again, of course, I think this comes down to audience focus, is we tend to, with terms of strategy, so many people that will put on a website, I used to do it on the printing industry, so they would talk about their certificates, their accreditations, their ISO accredit for things, and their equipment. I've got this print machine, I've got this thing. For me, that's like going out for dinner with the missus on a Friday night, but phoning the restaurant first to ask, has the chef got a health and safety certificate? And what oven manufacturer do you use? And what are the pots and pans made of? I don't care. I care about the experience. And I think that a lot of people get confused by broadcasting their marketing. I want to say this. Yeah. Actually, you've got to consider what the audience is interested in.
That's a really important point for people. And also to consider that the audience that you have right now probably aren't the audience that you want to have. Again, that focus and belief in the process, that if you create the right content and it is targeted at the right people, that they will eventually find you and start to align with you and support you. But it's tough going because it's lagging indicators, right? Like you don't find out that's working until you've been doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But yes, I think on the focus side of things, there are a lot of businesses that are, if I'm fair, like I can be the same, right? Like shiny object syndrome's real for me. I'm ADHD and I'm like, oh, new tool. Are you kidding me? Let me play with this for 6 days. When actually I should just be doubling down on the stuff that I'm already doing really well because that's delivering results. And it's hard to just keep that question in your mind. Do I need to be doing this right now? Is this aligned with where our future's at? And I think, again, to your point, that's where having that external advice can be really useful.
Yeah.
Flipping that question on its head then, what's one thing that you wish businesses would just stop doing? What's not working or maybe never worked?
Oh, that never works. That's a good one. Interesting. I don't have to answer that one. I think not having a strategy, not having a budget, even if you aren't a marketeer, you need to define who your audience are. Perhaps that's it. Audience. People just completely forget about their audience and they think that I sell red pens to people who want red pens. I'm going to broadcast that I make red pens better than anyone and cheaper than anyone. And perhaps just think about the fact that who wants a red pen? Don't broadcast. So I think that'd be one thing. I think there's an over reliance or overcrowding in terms of people rushing to AI at the moment that worries me a little bit, where people are just trying to produce mass content cheaply. And I think more authentic content's better. There's a tool I love at the moment called Video Ask, and it's a chatbot for your website, but it's frequently asked video answers that you would record like this. And I think it's far more authentic if the founder or an expert in that area of the business was on that page answering customers' questions. But I see a lot of clients that are trying to cut corners and use these AI video bots to produce it. And I'm thinking, you're going to get on the first Zoom call and they're going to know that was a bot. And I think it's just, you can cut corners in marketing to save budget, of course, but the place to cut corners.
I think you can get caught up in the silver lining around the shiny tools that you're looking at. But if you look at it objectively from a client's perspective and wonder to yourself, if the client realizes this isn't what it's supposed to be, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do, or even if it is, what sort of representation of my business does this give? If I'm being disingenuous with my video messaging, for example, they're going to assume that I'm disingenuous with my reports, and not consciously maybe, but subconsciously there's going to be a red flag there for anyone. And yeah, I think for a start, I think all that sort of stuff's got quite a long way to go yet. There's some really interesting growth in that area, and I think it'll come, but I think it'll probably move to a point.
There's some good execution, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it worries me a little bit about the mass AI driven content. It's surely going to drive quality down, and quality is going to affect trust, right?
Yeah. It's funny, I was talking with a business on this show. One of our first episodes was called Content at Scale. They've now ironically rebranded that because they don't want to be seen as content at scale anymore. I can't remember the name. I'll have to post it in the links. And I was talking with their chief technology officer, and basically what their whole point was, yes, we want to help agencies create SEO quality content, but we want to help you do it at an experienced person's level. And we only want it to be about 80% there because we want you to be able to finish it off. It's not about us creating that content that just gets pushed out to the end result. It's about, we want to shave 75, 80% of the time off the time it takes you to do that task, give you all the tools you need to go, I've got everything all in one place now. All my research is done. This is done. That's done. Now I just need to tweak this and make it human. And I think that's a really powerful message. Even the AI companies are starting to recognize that actually this is doing more harm than good. And by interjecting that human in the middle, you can really augment what that human's capable of. And I use AI all day, every day. Like, I love it. I'm very cautious about putting raw AI outputs in front of anyone because...
Yeah. I'm personally more of a fan of using it for business automation and marketing automation and tasks. Stuff that's really important that represents your brand and authenticity. It just worries me when clients say, I'm going to get some AI videos produced. I don't know if that's one particular area. It doesn't feel like it's there yet, but there's so many that it is. AI is great at many content production spaces.
Fantastic. Paul, I have thoroughly enjoyed our chat today. It's been great to catch up with you. Thank you very much for breaking your podcast virginity with us.
Thank you.
If people want to get in touch with you and find out a bit more about PW&A or making websites better, or just reach out to yourself, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn is my home, it feels like. So definitely look us up on LinkedIn. It'd be great to connect. If the make websites better, if there's nothing there for people, then I'm also launching PW&A, which is more of a fractional CMO. So trying to help the people between small businesses and the scale ups, like get to the point where they can then really scale. So yeah, I'm open to the chats with anybody. That'd be great.
Perfect. And I'll get the links for those and I'll pop them in the show notes. So if anybody wants to find out a bit more, just have a read down. It'll be there somewhere. Thanks for your time, Paul. Great to have you as a guest. And I hope you have a cracking week. Thanks for coming along and watching us. I'll see you next week on Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.